G'day everyone, welcome back to this production run video number 6. And in this video, I will be bowl coring with the Woodcut Bowl Saver Max 4. I'll be running through all these little points here, little pain points that I've experienced when I've done a bit of a production run of bowl coring. So yeah, I'll just get stuck into that. I'm gonna do a little bit of POV footage when I'm around the back here, just because it makes life a little bit easier in explaining things, because I don't believe sometimes this little camera up here can pick it all up. So I will put this one around my neck like this, and we are going to get stuck into it. Hopefully it's going to look nice and clear for you. Righto. So the first point that I want to quickly talk about is the shop setup, oiling, sharp tools, screens and dust masks. The first thing you can see is the screens that I've got set up here. That is to protect the rest of the workshop. So this is a photography big screen. That's just an old sheet off probably the mother-in-law's bed, but yes. That's an old sheet just there, and that just helps protect getting all the shavings, because as you can see, shavings get everywhere apart from where I'm standing. And I like to keep where I'm standing clean, because you don't want to be tripping up over things when you're at the lathe. Next thing I want to talk about is keeping the lathe lubricated. So before I start, this is a silicone spray. I spray the lathe down and get it all nice and lubricated, the bedways of the lathe lubricated, as well as the tool post that goes into the banjo of the woodcut bowl saver, or the bowl saver that you're using. That just helps removing it later on in case you get a little bit of residue down there, because all this timber is green timber. So lubricating everything up will save that surface rust from building up. Sharp tools, and how I go about keeping everything nice and sharp is I use a little, I got another one there, but I use a little block of timber just to save the bed of the bowl saver, or the platform I should say. A little credit card hone, holding it right on the angle there, and just giving the edge a little bit of a tickle up. Probably every third bowl I do that, and that just keeps it a nice little sharp crisp edge on the bowl saver, so you don't have to run into any dramas. Spalted material, if the material's super spalted, you want to wear a dust or a respirator, especially if you've had your bowls, you've roughed them out, you've set them aside, you've sealed up the end grain, which these ones over here have all been sealed, and I don't know if you remember, but they were sitting on the back here. And when I do sit them on the ground, I put them up, they're just some MDF sheets. I keep them off the concrete, and that just keeps the moisture from evaporating, I don't know, into the concrete if the concrete's not sealed or anything like that. So I keep them up off the ground, and I cover them with tarps if they're not sealed. If they're sealed, I don't cover them with tarps. So I just quickly seal up the end grain and then leave it till I'm ready to go. Also, if your material, if your material is moldy, you want to wear your respirator. If it's spalted, wear your respirator, because that spalting is a fungi, and you don't want to be breathing that in when you are roughing them out. The biggest thing that you want to make sure, I'll get to this in just a sec, this is my little jig. The biggest thing you want to get to when you are roughing out, bowl coring or anything like that, is what are you going to do with the shavings? Always have that plan in the back of your mind where the shavings are going to go. I give them to my brother-in-law who's got horses. He puts them in the pens or out in the paddocks. I now also use them as mulch. I put mulch around my property here, and that does a great job of keeping the weeds at bay. So just have a forethought of what you're going to do with the shavings, because you will get a lot of shavings. I fill tubs, the ICB tubs, I fill cubic meters of shavings when I'm roughing out. So just be mindful of what you're going to do with all your shavings. So I'm going to mark this bowl up now and get ready for bowl coring. So I've made this little jig up here, and how it works is when I come around to the back, I place this part here, the flat surface, on the back of the bowl. And now when I use the really big bowl jaws, this section here, that takes up the amount for those bowl jaws. So if you can see that there, they normally, because the jaws come out here, come out really far. So with these, I can just rest it there on the back of the jaws, and then that accounts for the jaws, which is 1 inch and I think it's about 22 mil or something like that. and then that's an inch, so 25 mil and another 25 mil. So they're the thicknesses I want to keep the bowls. I want to keep them at an inch thick all the way through. So now I don't have that. I just rest that on the back of the bowl like that. Mark one there, and one there. And they're your bowls. But I'm just going to leave the large knife on just to speed this video up. And I'll core this one out here, and then I'll core that one out there. Once I've marked there, I come around, leaving the bowl sort of steady, come around to the front here, and I hold this on to the edge of the bowl, mark there, second bowl, mark there, and then you've got the mother bowl. So you've got a core there and a core there, and then the mother bowl. So hopefully that makes all sense. I have found in the past that the really small bowls, they just don't sell as well, and you really don't get much material with them. So now, once I've done that, I come over and I get my laser, which is this here, slots in there, like so, and always having your air compressor available, because I can just feel there's a bit of grit in down that pipe there. Just quickly blow this out. Laser goes there, and then the little laser, you can see it. So this is why this POV camera is so handy. You can see that that then aligns all the way up. Oops, sorry. And I go to the outer edge of the blade like that. And then that runs around the back and then lines up. I'm going to get my first mark there. So I'm just going to adjust the bowl saver back. Like so. Sorry, what I do first is line it up with my mark in the center. So I get my first core, which was there. So it was that one there. Bring it back a bit. Get that lined up first, lined up with the laser. Oh, the blade lines up with the laser, like so. Come around the back, and I need to go back just a smidge, just a tiny bit there. But that will do. And we are ready to go. Now I go along and lock everything off so it's super tight, or just firm, you know. Get it all locked off, and we're sorted, ready to go. So helmet down, lathe on, and now the RPMs, you just want to start the lathe slow. Actually, before I do that, I just want to show you something. I'm just going to turn the power off, and then I'm going to show you around the back here on my lathe. Now this is a VL240 Vicmark lathe made in Australia. You'll have to just use your reference guide for your lathe and what pulley system it uses, even if it does use a pulley system at all. But this is a pulley system here on my lathe. The power is off, and ensure that the power is off before you do any of this. I go down here, and on my lathe, I release this little handle, lift the handle up. That then pushes the motor up, and then I move the belt around to what I need. So at the moment I need it on the largest wheel, which produces the maximum amount of torque to the spindle. So that's what I need when I'm roughing out, and also when I'm bowl coring. So this is for my lathe. Just turn the power back on. All right. Because you want that maximum amount of energy and force coming around to the spindle there. So let's get rolling. Take that off. And you can feel when you're coming to the bottom there, and then I stop. You can see why that bowl, you know, it's a pretty small little bowl really. So then, but that, you know, you get the maximum amount of out of your timber blank that you're using. So I've got my mark there now. Loosen off the banjo and the tailstock, get my laser back on, move it forward, and make sure we're in the right hole. See these 3 holes here? I've made a full video about all of this, so I'll put it in the description below and I'll also link it at the end. So line it up like this. Make sure it lines up with, see that there, lines up with our bottom mark there. Come back around, double check everything. We're all good there. And now we're away. So lock everything off again. This is how simple it is, but there's a really important thing that I'm about to show you, and it's called a relief cut. So everything is locked off. Start your lathe up, helmet down. Go in about an inch or so. Stop the lathe. And now this is where people come unstuck when they use the large knife when they're bowl coring. And I'll show you at the end of this as well, another little tip, how to stop catches from happening. Because I know a lot of people have catches with bowl coring in general. So what I'm going to do is now line that, get that out of the way, line that up with just the outside, loosen off the platform, just a touch, loosen off the banjo, and now see that little mark there? I'm just going to shuffle the not the mark, the cut that I've made previously. I'm going to go half the distance, roughly, of my cutting edge. See that there? And now what that will do is create relief. Dan's going to show us. When that knife goes in there, it will create, our previous cut will create relief for removing shavings when you get shavings build up when you go around the back of your bowl. This relief cut here that we first made will create an area for those shavings to extract, but also area for our blade to go around. You can see where it's rubbed previously on the back of the blade here. That cut there will give a little bit of relief as this big blade moves all the way around the back of our bowl. So let's get stuck into that. I put my hand here just to put a bit of weight down on that blade. And I'm just going by feel. I'm not forcing that blade in there. I'm going by how it feels, how the machine feels with the timber, you know. And if it's really hard going, just take your time. You'll notice when you get into a bit of that side grain, end grain material, it might bite a little bit. But you can see there how much room that blade has got. See? Just going to make sure everything's tight here. Yep, we're good. See those shavings coming out really easy? See those shavings clearing out really easily there? And you'll feel it, you'll feel just at the end, it'll feel really, it starts feeling easy, and sometimes I stop, especially if it's a real big piece. You can feel it. There, right there, I reckon. I'm probably wrong. No, I'm right. You can feel where it just nips into that timber and just lets you go in. But now, so another point I had on my little list here, like a bull in a china shop. Another thing that I had on my list was avoid faults. Faults are like when, I can't think of an analogy, but a fault is like a bad hangover. It just keeps dragging on and you can't shake it, and it takes sometimes a week or two to get rid of. But with faults, it will follow you all the way through until you remount it back on the lathe. So unfortunately, that is a big fault in there, a big bit of rot, and that's either going to go as a second and I'll sell that to someone else through my website who likes using resin and epoxy and all that type of stuff. I try not to use all that, but that's a fault that I try to avoid, because like I said, they'll keep following you along, and you'll put it back on the lathe and you just waited 6 months or so for it to air dry, and they just annoy you. So now I'm going to show you how I quickly seal the end grain. And what I use is a PVA wood glue, and I use it neat, so straight out of the bottle. You get your PVA wood glue, put it in a little container like so, or wherever, how you like to do it. Put it in there and then paint it on the end grain only. You don't need to paint the whole bowl. You don't need to paint the rim. Sometimes I do, but you don't need to do any of that. So just paint it on the end grain. It will stop the evaporation of moisture, or the timber seeking moisture, and prevent cracking. So that's the main reason you want to paint your end grain timber. And one big thing before you do any of that is a way of moving your material around. So what I have over here, when I need to move my material around, I've also got my forklift, but this, I use a removalist trolley. And I know this sounds super basic, but get yourself a removalist trolley. You can find them secondhand. It'll save you back. As well as I've got good wheelbarrows that will also, you can just load them up with all your timber and away you go. And that'll save you a lot of time and a lot of back-breaking work. So just have a search on Facebook Marketplace or something like that for a removalist trolley or a good wheelbarrow. You'll thank me later when you're trying to move all your stock by hand, and you'll do your back end, trust me. Now, with these little cores, so that's a bit of hickory. If anyone know, like a pecan, it's a species of hickory. You want to make sure you seal all the end grain when you go to stack that up. This has a big fault in it, so it's not going to make the team. So one thing that I really wanted to show you before you do anything in mounting bowls on the lathe or coring or anything like that is to have the proper setup of your bowl corer. And I will link that video at the end of how to do it, but I want to show you that I'm not giving you any BS, and I haven't had any catches with any of this stuff. So I'll move this up, grab your cone center, put your cone center in your spindle, and when you've set your bowl corer up, you've put it in and everything like that, before you start bowl coring every single time, make sure that your cutter is positioned above the spindle, and that will prevent a lot of catches. And then tighten off the little collar, tighten that off so it's nice and tight and it's not going to move. But as you can see, I've cored all these bowls, you know, all these little blanks here, they're all been cored this morning, and I haven't had one catch, and that is a big part of it all, as well as locking it all off when you're going through the motions of doing things, and allow it to feed in itself. Allow the cutter to feed in itself. Don't push it in. Bring it back out every now and then. Do those little relief cuts, and you will thank me. This video here runs through all the principles that I have found from other turners and all that. Check that video out there. It'll help you out when you're trying to bowl core and things like that. Check this video out here about drying timber if timber drying is an interest to you. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you all directly. Cheers. Bye. Brr.